Behind the smiles of Mayberry, Ron Howard, hidden tensions, and a life beyond the camera. The Andy Griffith Show is remembered as one of the most wholesome and comforting sitcoms in television history. For millions of viewers, Mayberry represented a simpler time. It was a town where problems were solved with patience, kindness, and common sense. Families gathered around their televisions to watch Sheriff Andy Taylor, his young son Opie, Aunt Bee, and the rest of the town's lovable characters live out gentle, heartwarming stories. But behind those white picket fences and warm smiles, the real world of Mayberry was far more complicated. When the cast gathered for the wrap party marking the end of the Andy Griffith Show, it felt like the closing of an era. For the audience, it was the end of a beloved show. For the cast, it was the end of a long journey filled with success, pressure, and unspoken tension. Ron Howard, the red-haired boy America grew up with, was there too. And although fans believed the cast was one big happy family, the truth was very different. While Ron Howard shared laughter and learning moments with Andy Griffith and Don Knotts, there was one cast member he never felt comfortable around. Quietly, and without drama, he carried that discomfort with him for decades. He wasn't alone either. That same person became involved in the one feud that even Andy Griffith himself could never fully forget. For years, this tension stayed hidden. No interviews, no headlines, no scandals. But time has a way of loosening tightly kept secrets. The show that defined a generation. The Andy Griffith Show premiered on CBS on October 3rd, 1960, and ran until April 1st, 1968. Over 8 seasons, the show delivered 249 episodes, 159 in black and white and 90 in color. It never dropped below 7th place in the Nielsen ratings, and in its final season, it ended at number 1. Only I Love Lucy and Seinfeld share that rare achievement. The show began as a backdoor pilot on The Danny Thomas Show, introducing Andy Griffith as Sheriff Andy Taylor, a widowed lawman raising his son Opie in the fictional town of Mayberry, North Carolina. Though Mayberry never existed, Andy Griffith said its spirit reflected a world he remembered from the 1930s, not the fast-changing 1960s. The characters quickly became American icons. Don Knotts brought life to the nervous and lovable Deputy Barney Fife. Frances Bavier played Aunt Bee, the steady and caring heart of the Taylor household. And young Ron Howard, credited as Ronnie Howard at the time, played Opie, the thoughtful boy learning life lessons from his father. On screen, they looked like a real family. Off-screen, they were not. Ron Howard's early life and rise to fame. Ron Howard was born on March 1st, 1954, in Duncan, Oklahoma, into a show business family. His father, Rance Howard, was an actor and director, and his mother, Jean Howard, was also an actress. Acting was part of Ron's life from the very beginning. By age 5, he was already appearing in films and television shows, including The Twilight Zone, Dennis the Menace, and The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. But everything changed in 1960 when he landed the role of Opie Taylor. Howard later described his early days on set as relaxed and welcoming, especially his interactions with Andy Griffith. Griffith treated him with patience and humor, helping him feel comfortable as a child actor. That gentle guidance left a lasting impression. However, not everyone on set shared that warmth. The hidden conflict in Mayberry. Despite the show's cozy image, tension existed behind the scenes, especially between Andy Griffith and Frances Bavier, who played Aunt Bee. On screen, they represented stability and love. Off-screen, they barely got along. Frances Bavier was deeply private and extremely serious about her work. She kept her distance from the cast and preferred solitude. While Andy Griffith was friendly and social, Bavier was reserved and guarded. To some, she came across as cold or difficult. Howard Morris, who played Ernest T. Bass and also directed episodes, once said working with Bavier felt like walking through a minefield. Even small requests could upset her. She was very particular about her space, her movements, and how scenes were performed. Ron Howard, still a child, felt that tension clearly. While Aunt Bee fussed lovingly over Opie on screen, Bavier was distant in real life. She wasn't cruel, but she was never warm. That contrast stayed with Howard long after the cameras stopped rolling. One famous example was the pickle episode, where Opie had to eat Aunt Bee's terrible homemade pickles. What viewers didn't know was that Ron Howard hated pickles and had to eat them repeatedly during multiple takes. For him, it was a miserable experience, made worse by the strained atmosphere. A feud that lasted decades. Andy Griffith once tried to repair his relationship with Bavier by visiting her unannounced at her home. The attempt backfired. Bavier valued her privacy, and the visit only deepened the divide. It wasn't until near the end of her life that things changed. Battling serious illness, Bavier called Griffith and apologized. She admitted she had been difficult and took responsibility for their strained relationship. Griffith later said the call meant a great deal to him. Frances Bavier passed away in 1989 at age 86. She spent her final years quietly in North Carolina, far from Hollywood. Andy Griffith also lived to 86, passing away peacefully at his home on Roanoke Island. Their reconciliation came late, but brought closure to one of television's most hidden feuds. Ron Howard's life after Mayberry. When the Andy Griffith show ended, Ron Howard didn't fade away. Instead, he reinvented himself. In 1974, he found success again as Richie Cunningham on Happy Days, becoming a second-generation TV icon. But Howard had bigger dreams. Even while acting, he was learning how stories were told behind the camera. In 1977, he directed his first film, Grand Theft Auto, through a deal with producer Roger Corman. That opportunity changed his life. In the years that followed, Howard directed Splash, Willow, Night Shift, Apollo 13, and many more. Then came A Beautiful Mind in 2001. The film won Best Picture, and Howard won Best Director at the Oscars. The success also brought controversy. Critics accused the film of softening the truth about John Nash's life by leaving out difficult details. Howard admitted he made choices to protect the heart of the story, but the criticism followed him. A quiet love story. Amid all the fame and pressure, Ron Howard built something rare in Hollywood, a lasting marriage. He met Cheryl Alley when they were just teenagers. They married in 1975 and celebrated 50 years together in 2025. Their relationship stayed out of headlines and scandals. They raised 4 children, supported each other's dreams, and built a life based on trust and patience. Howard often says their secret was simple. They kept growing together. Modern disappointment and old lessons. In recent years, Howard found himself publicly disappointed by J.D. Vance, whose memoir Hillbilly Elegy he adapted into a Netflix film. At the time, Vance was not a political figure. But as Vance entered politics, Howard felt the man had become unrecognizable. Howard didn't lash out. He didn't rant. He simply expressed disappointment. For him, it echoed a lesson he learned long ago on the Andy Griffith set. A warm image doesn't always reflect reality. Smiles can hide tension. Stories can change. The man who saw it all. Ron Howard's life spans child stardom, directing greatness, quiet controversy, and enduring love. From pretending a toy turtle was real to winning Oscars, he's seen every side of Hollywood. And if anyone understands how easily appearances can fool an audience, it's Ron Howard. He learned that lesson behind the scenes of America's most wholesome show. Mayberry looked perfect. It wasn't. And that truth shaped a storyteller who never stopped watching closely.